Hi, welcome to Imagine with ImagineWithIlluminArt. My name is Gideon, and today we will be writing sonnets. And while I encourage anyone who writes to participate, my students at IS2 and PS39, I'm looking at you. I'm making this lesson for all the high schoolers out there. So, welcome to Sonnets for Seniors. For this lesson, we'll need a pen or pencil, some paper, and 2 sheets of paper is fine, but I always like to have more. You'll also need one object from your room. You can find one now if you'd like, but don't worry about it. We'll play a game that will show us a bunch of objects in the room. And lastly, you'll need a photograph, especially one that has some meaning to you. Now, what is a sonnet? Well, if I turn to the dictionary I have in my computer, a sonnet is a poem of 14 lines using any of a number of formal rhyme schemes in English having 10 syllables per line. Let's go back to that definition. A sonnet is a poem of 14 lines. Well, that's great. I always like having limits and clear instructions. Let's see, the next part. Using any of a number of formal rhyme schemes. What's a rhyme scheme? In poems, a rhyme scheme shows us which line endings rhyme with each other. We usually use letters to do this, to represent the rhymes, with a letter corresponding to a certain rhyme. Let me give you an example. I was a poet and I didn't even know it. These 2 lines have the same rhyme, an o-it sound at the end. We're going to use the letter A to refer to this o-it rhyme. That makes this an AA rhyme scheme. Each letter represents a whole line. Now, let's say we add another line to this little poem. I was a poet and I didn't even know it. I didn't mean to rhyme, but I do it all the time. Ah, we have a brand new line we can try to rhyme. We're going to label our I'm sound as B. So, our rhyme scheme here becomes AABB. Now, a rhyme scheme doesn't just have to be AABB. Let's look at a Robert Frost poem called After Apple Picking. My long 2-pointed ladder's sticking through a tree, toward heaven still, and there's a barrel that I didn't fill beside it, and there may be 2 or 3 apples I didn't pick upon some bough. So, the rhyme scheme Robert Frost is using is ABBAC, and that's only a part of the poem, so it goes on, and I'm sure there's a C somewhere and maybe even a D and an E. Now, what rhyme scheme you choose depends on what kind of sonnet you want to write. The kind of sonnets we're going to be writing are Shakespearean sonnets, named for you-know-who, William Shakespeare. That means we'll be using the rhyme scheme ABAB, CDCD, EFEFGG, which gives us 14 lines. Now that we know what rhyme schemes are, let's look at the last part of our definition. A poem of 14 lines using any of a number of formal rhyme schemes in English typically having 10 syllables per line. I'm going to be writing my poem in English, but if you want to write yours in another language, do it. The part I wanted to highlight is 10 syllables per line. That's how Shakespeare wrote his sonnets. And since we're doing Shakespearean sonnets, that's how we'll write ours. And if you don't know, a syllable represents a beat in a word. For example, the word syllable has 3 beats. Syllable. Why did Shakespeare write this way with the whole 10-syllable thing? It wasn't to sound formal and poetic, but because it was thought to represent the natural speech of everyday people. I've had acting teachers say that this is still the way we speak right now. And next time you're having an everyday conversation with someone, secretly count how many syllables per sentence or thought that you're both using. Does it add up to 10? And since we're looking to use our natural everyday speech, no need for these and thous and haths or dosts in our poems. That was the everyday speech of Shakespeare's time, and while learning about that can help us unlock his poetry, today we're unlocking the poetry inside of us. So write how you speak. Be authentic. Now, before I write, I like to make sure I move around. I know that it's hard to, at this present moment, to go for a walk and get some fresh air. And if you can have those things, go get them. But for the rest of us, moving around just a little bit can make a big difference. So, get up if you can and move with me. Move around the room, walk. You see, when we write, we just don't write with our pens and pencils, but with our whole bodies. From memories, experiences, and imagination, life is a full body experience. Every part of us has something to say. It's time for a game called Name the Thing. We'll be raising our voices a little, so if there's someone that might be concerned if they heard you yelling, you let them know it's part of this game. And if you have to be quiet, well then, try to keep the same energy in your whisper. For the next minute, I want you to open up your eyes wide, point at something in the room, take a big breath, and yell what the thing is. Then point at something else. Keep your eyes wide, take a breath, and yell what that thing is. Repeat this for about a minute. Ready, set, go! Now, choose one object that you named, and if you're able, pick it up and bring it with you wherever you're writing. I'll choose this lamp over here. Now, if it was someone's glasses, or if someone wants to use the same object, or if it's an electrical outlet in the wall, that's okay. Don't worry about picking it up. But I want you to keep that object on your mind. Now, go ahead and get seated where you'll be writing, and get out one of your pieces of paper. I just have a little one for now. We're finally going to be getting to do our writing. Now, at the top of your page, and I hope you have a much bigger piece of paper than what I have here, write down the name of the object. So I'm going to write down lamp. How would you describe it? What color is it? What is its texture like? What kind of a sound would it make? What would it be like to taste it? Would you want to taste it? Try to describe your object with each sense. Now, what's it used for? Is it connected to anything? Is it a part of something else? Does it remind you of someone or something? Now, this could turn into a free write, where you list as many things as you can. Is there something completely out of left field that makes you think about? Now, if you brought extra paper, like me, you can keep writing more on another page. But if you got a big sheet of paper, one page is good enough. Now, when you're done, I want you to write a Q1 at the top. Put that at the top of the next page next to the name of the object. We'll get to what that Q1 means in a little bit. Now, go get your photograph and turn your paper over, or get a fresh sheet if you need it. If you have a picture on your phone or tablet, you can use that too. Now, this should be a photograph that means something to you, especially if it's of a fond memory or someone special to you. If you could give a title or a caption or a newspaper headline to this photo, what would it be? Write it down at the top of your page. Now, make a list of the 5 senses: sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing. If you have a 6th or a 7th sense, write that down too. Creativity is appreciated. Now, looking again at your photo, let your mind wander with it. Remember when I said that writing is something we do with our whole body? Explore this memory that the photograph brings back through your senses, and list at least one thing about this photo for every sense. For example, maybe it's the color of my brother's eyes, or the smell of my favorite meal. Maybe it's the smell of a dirty diaper. Do you remember what you ate the day of the picture? What was the weather like? How did the sun feel on your skin? What are you feeling or hearing now as you look at it and you wander into that memory? Now, what about that sixth sense? Is there something that this photograph makes you feel? Write as much as comes to you. I like using who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now, fill up that whole page, and if you'd like maybe more, describe the photo and what it means to you. Now, let's come up with a title for this. If this photo was the front page of a newspaper, what would the headline be? When you're done, write Q2 on top of the page and any other page you've written on about this photo. And we're now finally going to reveal what this Q stuff means. Let's look again at our rhyme scheme for our Shakespearean sonnets. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. What do you notice about them? Based on the rhymes and how I placed them, it sounds like they all belong in certain groups. Our poem has 3 of these 4-lined verses called quatrains, and a rhyming couplet at the end. The first 2 quatrains describe a problem, complaint, or situation the speaker has. The subject Shakespeare often described was love. We call the 3rd quatrain the turn. It's kind of like the climax, where a change happens, sometimes in the speaker's perspective. Our couplet then ends the poem, sort of like a the end that rhymes. In Shakespeare's plays, he would often end scenes with these. From Romeo and Juliet, good night, parting is such sweet sorrow, that I shall say good night till it be morrow. I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty nice way to say goodbye. Now that we know about couplets, it's time to write our sonnets. Now, remember when I told you to write Q1 on top of your page about your object and Q2 on your page about the photograph? These are the subjects of your first 2 quatrains, respectively. We have them. Now, let's prepare the piece of paper where we will write our first draft of a sonnet. Take that paper, and I want you to fold it hamburger style. So it's a square. That's not to be confused when you fold it in half, hot dog style, long ways. That's how they taught us when I was a kid in school. I wonder if teachers still do it today. Now, on one side, on the very top, I want you to write Q1, as well as the name of your object. On the bottom half of that page, write Q2 and the title of the photograph. On the other side of your paper, write Q3 at the top and write turn next to that. And at the bottom, write couplet. Now, to make our lives extra easy, let's go ahead and put the rhyme schemes on here. For Q1, A, B, A, B. Quatrain 2, C, D, C, D. Q3, E, F, E, F, couplet, G, G. Great. Now it's time to transform this into a sonnet. 10-syllable lines and adding our rhymes. Look through all the things you've written. Are there any sentences that fit nicely into 10 syllables? Are there any rhymes already? Any opportunities for rhymes? Think of this process as working with our clay, which are our memories, and we're molding them, or we're building a very nice picture frame to put this photograph into. Here's the second sonnet I wrote. I'm nicknaming these the quarantine sonnets, even though we're technically not in quarantine. I sit here with this, a lonely lamp, my only light with the blotted out sun. Oh, my little light, too small for a camp, and far too much rain to have that much fun. And look at this photo here, my sister, 6 years young, mischievous, smiling. That's a summer's brow. Oh, how I miss her. But with her young ones, it's late to be dialing. But what now? Here comes the new video. From her little ones, splat, in the mud. Look at Mary jump at brother Theo. Reminds me of us, she says. My big brud. Suddenly all's turned. The clouds have parted, and sister again's made me light-hearted. Lastly, when your first draft of your poem is done, rejoice! You did it! You're a sonneteer! Find someone you can trust to be nice and supportive, to hear your first draft of your poem, and read it aloud to them. If it's just you, read it to your object and your photo. Thanks for tuning in. Check out our other YouTube videos on this channel, like them, and subscribe. And don't forget to tell your friends.